Welcome back to my channel, ladies and gentlemen. So this is an unprecedented first. I am doing a deck profile for a deck that's not Archfiend's. Can you believe it? So this is a Yubel deck profile, and honestly, I've been having a lot of fun with this deck. So I'm going to show you how to play it. I'm going to show you a bunch of different techs that you can use. And more importantly, I'm going to show you the build that I've been running that I think is one of the more consistent, one of the more fun ways to play the deck. So here's the deck in its entirety. I'll go over every card one by one. So starting off with our Yubel lineup. So we have one Yubel, the Ultimate Nightmare, and one Yubel Terror Incarnate, and then we have two Yubel monsters. So a lot of people, when they run this deck, they tend not to run the evolutions of Yubel, so Terror Incarnate and Ultimate Nightmare, but I think that's a bit of a mistake. At the very least, you should run Terror. There are some cool interactions with it, but I find that one of the main gimmicks of Yubel is its ability to float very consistently and kind of continuously. So running these evolutions keeps you with a board presence and also makes it quite hard for your opponent to get around because of their extra like damage reflection effects. People just tend not to run Ultimate Nightmare because they think it's a bit of a brick, but I don't think it's bricky enough to exclude it. So Ultimate Nightmare is really fun. Terror Incarnate has that end phase board wipe, which sometimes comes up, which is really cool. And just as another note, if you have Terror Incarnate on the field and it leaves the field, so that's the really important thing. If it goes back into your hand, for example, if they like compulse it or whatever, the effect still triggers. If it bounces into your hand, you can then still float into Ultimate Nightmare and then you retain the Terror Incarnate, you know. And then we run two Yubel. You could cut this to one, but I found two to be fairly optimal. And the reason for that is if you've got Geist Grinder Golem in your hand, then you can use it to summon the Yubel and itself. And then with cards like Spirit of Yubel, you can also summon another version of it. And then that sets up an OTK straight away. We run three Spirit of Yubel. So this is one of the new cards. You can run two. I think two at a minimum works just fine. Having the third one is just an extra name and it makes the deck a little bit more consistent. So just to explain what Spirit of Yubel does, it has the effect where it can't be destroyed by battle and you take no battle damage when attacks are actually involved with it. But if it is destroyed, it gets to float into Yubel. And that float is from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And it's also not once per turn. So it can float into Yubels basically forever, so long as it keeps getting destroyed. Now it has two more effects. Battle Trap. So if your opponent declares an attack when it's in your hand, you can just straight up special summon it from your hand. So it basically becomes a wall. And if it is special summoned, by any means, not just through this effect, you can take a spell or trap card that mentions Yubel, and you can either set it to your field or you can add it straight into your hand. This is really crucial, because during your first turn, you want to have your setup going, right? You want to be able to search Nightmare Pain. If you set it to your field, that gets around cards like Droll and Lockbird, so it's really quite useful to dodge hand traps in that sense. The Battle Trap part of the effect is absolutely hilarious, because if your opponent doesn't realize you've got it in your hand and they don't out Nightmare Pain, they attack, you summon it, and you basically force your opponent to lose by attacking into Spirit of Yubel. So it's really strong. We have Geist Grinder Golem. I just run it at one. It's an OTK enabler, but I don't really care about seeing multiples of it. So I tend to try and search it out instead of like hard drawing it. But basically, if you have a Yubel monster in your hand, you just reveal both, you summon Geist onto your opponent's side of the field, and then you can optionally summon the Yubel monster onto your side of the field. And then the nice thing about this is because it has 3000 attack, if you have at least two Yubel monsters, then you've got an OTK set up. And also when you attack it once per turn, you gain all of the life points. So you attack into it and you gain 3000 life points, which is not bad. And then we have our starter monster, which is unfortunately the biggest choke point in the deck. And that is Samsara Regenerating Lotus. So it's a Fiend level 1, and it has the effect where you can, if it's on the field, you can tribute it, and you special summon a Yubel monster from your deck. So pretty much what you want to do is tribute it and special summon Spirit of Yubel, and then that allows you to carry on searching all the cards that you need. It has a sort of Omni Negate mixed in with it. So if your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a Yubel monster, it just basically changes the effect where you tribute the Lotus, and then the effect becomes destroying a Yubel monster on the field. So, you know, if you have Spirit of Yubel, then destroying that means you get to float into Yubel, which is nice. And if Regenerating Lotus is in your graveyard and you happen to control a Yubel, like the actual Yubel, not just any Yubel monster, then you can either add it back into your hand or you can special summon it back onto the field. So basically the standard combo is you end with this on the field as a kind of Omni Negate, right? And now we run my personal tech. So I run a very small Neos package. So we run Elemental Hero Neos, we run Spirit of Neos, and then we also run Neos Wiseman. So Spirit of Neos is just there so you can search out Neos Fusion, and also it can special summon itself, which is always nice as like an extra wall because it can't be destroyed by battle. And then if you really want, you can shuffle it into the deck to summon Elemental Hero Neos, if that tickles your fancy. Neos Wiseman is an extra float, and it does actually come up more often than you think. You can either hard summon it through its actual summoning condition by getting rid of Neos and a Yubel, which isn't that difficult, or you basically force it out through Neos Kluger, which is the fusion monster. And its effect is pretty much the same as all the Yubel monsters. The only difference is you get to inflict the life points, and then you also gain the life points, and it has 3,000 attacks, so it's quite strong. And now we have 3 monster hand traps, so we have 3 Ash Blossom, and then we have 3 Nibiru. We pick Nibiru because it is also a win condition. So all you need to do is get rid of all of their monsters when you summon it, and that is just enough to OTK with just 2 Yubel monsters. So that's the whole monster lineup, 20 monsters. And then in the spells and traps, we have Nightmare Pain. This is one of the newer cards. It's a continuous spell card, and all it does is you activate it, and then you can destroy a dark monster in your hand or on the field. And then if you do that, so it's a simultaneous effect, which can be nice to like float into your other monsters. You get to add a Yubel or one card that mentions it from your deck to your hand. So it basically searches anything that you need. But more importantly, it has the absolutely hilarious effect that if you control a Yubel monster, they have to attack with all of their monsters onto Yubel monsters if they can. So it basically forces a battle phase if all of their monsters are in attack mode, and any damage that they inflict actually gets reflected back at them. So it's a really quick way to just end the game. So we play that at 3. Play 1 Mature Chronicle. This is probably one of the worst cards. You can easily cut it. The only reason why I keep it is because it's a name, and if your game gets into like the mid sort of grindy game, this can be a very convenient way to maintain field presence. You can search super polymerization off of it, but really what you're going to be doing is using the very first effect, which lets you special summon a Yubel monster. So using 1 counter, you summon the Yubel back, you get that counter back again. So you've got infinite uses of it every turn, right? Other than that, it's a really clunky card to use. I suppose it creates a bit of a danger situation where your opponent thinks, oh, you might be able to search super poly, so I'm gonna like prioritize this. And if it does get destroyed, like it doesn't really affect you, so at least it's a bait. So Neos Fusion, as I say, it allows you to use monsters from your hand, deck, or field in order to do the fusion summon. And then it also has the effect where it can protect that fusion monster as well. So keep in mind, we run 2 Yubels, so you need to make sure that one of them is at least in your deck or in your hand, because otherwise if it's in your graveyard, you're going to have a bad time. It's just going to be a dead card, right? But you use this card to fusion summon Neos Kluger, which before damage calculation, when it attacks something, you inflict damage to them equal to that monster's actual attack. So it kind of does, like at a minimum, it inflicts the amount that Kluger has. And then if it happens to get destroyed by pretty much anything, then it floats into Neos Wiseman, ignoring the summoning conditions. Carrying on, these are more just sort of consistency cards. So we run 1 for 1. This lets you special summon Samsara Regenerating Lotus, which is not bad. We run 3 Piri Race Map, which again allows you to search for Samsara Regenerating Lotus. It also lets you search for basically any of the other cards that you need. You lose half your life points, but that doesn't really matter, especially because you can regenerate them by attacking Geist Grinder Golem or just going for game in that very turn if it's turn 2. We run 3 Pot of Prosperity. So you need to kind of dig into your deck to search that one starter that you've got, or at least search for like a Nightmare Pain to destroy your other Yubel cards. There are other cards like Allure of Darkness and sort of the other pot cards as well, but I've found that Prosperity tends to be the most consistent one. The only downside is that it makes all of your damage halved until the end of the turn. So it does conflict with your OTK. There have been a couple of times where I clearly had enough damage, but because of Pot of Prosperity, they were ended on like 100 life points or something ridiculous. So just keep in mind that if you're activating this, you might not win that turn if it's turn like 2 and beyond. So don't just activate it because you can. Think, do you actually need to? There's also Small World, which is very similar to Piri Race Map. That also allows you to dig into exactly the card that you need. But I feel like I need most of my names present in the deck, but that's a perfectly viable card. 3 Super Polymerization. So again, this is kind of like meta dependent, but the lovely thing about Super Poly is that it can just wipe the board, particularly with the new Yubel monster, because you just get rid of one of your Yubel monsters and then 1 or more effect monsters on the field. So you just wait for them to establish their board and then you just get rid of everything. It's insane. Having said that, you don't have to run it in a Yubel deck. It's kind of like a supercharged win condition, but feel free to substitute it if you don't want to run it. Then we have Eternal Favorite. So this card you can run at 1, but 2 I feel is pretty optimal. Eternal Favorite is really good. And if you have it and it gets outed, you're going to have a bad time. So running 2 is really nice, but it has 2 effects. 1 lets you special summon one of your Yubel monsters that's in your graveyard or banished, and neither player can activate cards in response to this. Then the other one is if you control Yubel itself, you discard a card, send Eternal Favorite to the graveyard, and then you can fusion summon. This second effect is Super Polymerization within the trap card, because you can use monsters from either field. So pretty much you activate it and then you board wipe with it. 2 really important things to know about Eternal Favorite. The first effect, if you're summoning Spirit of Yubel, you will not get its effect because you can't activate effects in response to using it. So pretty much you want to use this as a chain link of like 2 or higher. So in response to your opponent doing something, then you can flip it up and then activate it. Even though the Super Poly effect is really tempting to use, I think more often than not, I tend to just use the first effect a lot. And then because of game mechanics, the second effect cannot be activated as you flip the card up, which is a bit ridiculous. So you pretty much, if you want to use that effect, flip it early, and then when your opponent does something while it's face up on the field, then you activate the effect, which will allow you to Super Poly the field. And then finally, we just round off the main deck with 3 Infinite Impermanents. Now for the extra deck, not really too much to say here really. So Pot of Prosperity means I'm just doubling up on a bunch of cards. So in a nutshell, I'm running the new Yubel fusion monster, and I'm gonna try my best to pronounce this. So it's Yubel das ewig liebe Wachter. How did I do? So it's a really strong fusion monster. When it's summoned, the burn effect is basically the win condition. So you want to kind of like whittle your opponent down and then just wait for them to overcommit, and then you just flip Super Poly, send everything off, and then inflict like 3,000 damage or more to them. So it's 500 for each fusion material that you used. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, which is really decent. Again, this whole deck is just I'm going to wall up and then you attack into me. And then also if at the end of the damage step, this monster attacks an opponent's monster, you inflict damage equal to that monster's attack, and then you banish that monster. So it's really good to out a lot of things like Dragoon, who cares, right? It also has 0 attack, so they're not even going to be damaging you. And it basically inflicts double damage. So you attack, and then if you've got like Nightmare Pain, then they lose the attack that they had. And then also Yubel's effect kicks in and deals damage again, and then they lose their monster. So we run it at 3. 2 is fine, but you know, Pot of Prosperity. 1 Neos Kluger. This is just for my Neos Fusion package. You can cut it if you want. I really like it. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. So we've got a very small Super Poly package. So Starving Venom, we've got Garura, and then we've got Mud Dragon. So these just kind of cater to pretty much any deck that you're going to be against. And then we have 2 Zeus, again, Pot of Prosperity. And then we have 3 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Liebe, and then 3 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannons Gustav Max. The very classic quickest win condition that you can do is pretty much a 2-card combo. So I won't be able to show you exactly because this is just a test hand, but activate Nightmare Pain. You're going to be destroying Spirit of Yubel, and then let's say you're going to add Samsara Regenerating Lotus into your hand. This will activate Spirit's effect, and then we'll summon Yubel from the deck. Samsara, we're going to normal summon, and then use its effect, tribute itself, and then we're going to summon Spirit of Yubel from our deck. Yubel's effect can activate, this doesn't matter, we're just going to add Eternal Favorite, why not? And then here we've got our 2 monsters, so if they have a monster on their side of the field, all we need to do is attack into that monster, and they will lose some life points. And then we'll just attack again into our other monster, they'll lose more life points, and then you just overlay into Gustav Max, and then you deal the extra damage that you can. Another 2-card combo, so this is if you have Geist in your hand, so you want to summon Regenerating Lotus, and then this effect will activate, letting you summon Spirit of Yubel from your deck. This effect will then activate, so what you want to do now is search for Nightmare Pain. You pretty much always want to set it onto your side of the field, activate Nightmare Pain, activate its effect. Then we're going to destroy Spirit of Yubel, and this lets you search for any card. So we're just going to put Yubel itself into our hand. Spirit of Yubel's effect activates, letting us float into our second Yubel. And then here, because we have Geist in our hand, we'll just target the Yubel, summon the Geist, and then we'll also summon the Yubel onto our side of the field. So here is the same OTK that we were saying before. The only difference now is you're facilitating it through Geist Grinder Golem. So you don't have to rely on your opponent's monsters. And this is really useful because if if you're in the mirror match, you're going to be, hitting 0 attack monsters, Wet Noodle versus Wet Noodle. So Good Stuff Max deals the extra 2000, and then that's the OTK. So it's really, really quite simple to just end the game very quickly with this deck. Now, one last thing that I want to show you is just a couple of other techs that you might want to consider. These aren't necessarily less consistent, but they have their own game plans, and then they just make your deck go in a slightly different direction. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is the Gates package. So this mainly abuses the opening of the Spirit Gates. It's a really good card for Yubel. The only problem is you have to run cards like Dark Beckoning Beast, and that card is really not very good. So if you open Dark Beckoning, it's okay, but then if it gets interrupted, you are really, really screwed. So I'm going to use Dark Beckoning. So what I did was Gates, search, Beckoning, summon Beckoning, search, another Gates, and then we're going to normal summon Regenerating Lotus. Here we're going to link both of those off into Yama. Yama's effect is going to activate, allowing us to search for Abominable Unchained Soul. You can also search for the trap card as well. Then here we're going to use Gates' effect, discarding our second Gates to summon Regenerating Lotus back onto our side of the field. Now we just activate Lotus's effect, tribute it, special summon Spirit of Yubel. Yubel's effect is going to activate, and here we can search for all sorts of things, but we're going to search for Nightmare Pain and set that onto our side of the field. Activate Nightmare Pain. Here we're going to use its effect to destroy Spirit to search for whatever we need. In this case, it's going to be Eternal Favorite. Then here, we're going to activate Spirit's effect, and we'll also activate Abominable Unchained Soul's effect. This will summon Soul onto our side of the field, and a Yubel onto our side of the field. Now from here, we're not going to activate Unchained's effect. Instead, we're going to use Gates to add our old Gates back into our hand. And now we can link both of these off into Unchained Soul of Rage. It can be that, which is great, or it can be Little Knight, but the benefit of this is you can use Soul of Rage as a disruption to then go into Little Knight for a second disruption, so that's quite powerful. And then finally we set Eternal Favorite and then end our turn. And then we have Lotus's effect, which will regenerate itself, so we'll just special summon that. And now Yubel's effect will activate, and you have a choice. You can either tribute the Lotus to keep it on the field, giving you a super polymerization through Eternal Favorite, or you can choose to destroy Yubel, and when you do that, it will trigger Yama to revive Spirit of Yubel. And then next turn, you can revive stuff with Eternal Favorite, and then that just keeps your floating game. So it really depends on what you want to do. In either case, you have two disruptions with Soul of Rage, and then you either have an Omni Negate with Lotus or Super Polymerization with Eternal Favorite, whatever you want to do. We can go a tiny step further. If you happen to open Nightmare Pain as well, then that kind of enables a little bit extra. So you can search for Dark Beckoning Beast off of Gates, summon Dark Beckoning Beast, activate its effect, search for the second Gates, and then we're going to summon good old Samsara Regenerating Lotus, link both of them off into Yama. Yama's effect is going to activate, bring Unchained Soul to the hand, and then we'll activate Gates, discard Gates, summon Samsara. Samsara's effect, tribute to bring out Spirit. So far it's very, very similar. Spirit is going to search for Mature Chronicle, set it onto the field, and then we activate Chronicle, and then we activate good old Nightmare Pain. At this point, you can also decide to, recycle your Spirit Gates Unleashed. Activate Nightmare Pain, destroy Spirit of Yubel, and here we're going to add to our hand whatever we like. This is going to be Eternal Favorite. Then Spirit of Yubel will float. We can choose at this point to summon Unchained Soul. In this particular combo, we don't actually need to. So instead, we're going to float into Yubel. Mature Chronicle will get a token, which is always nice. And now we can link both of these off into our Unchained Soul of Rage. Finally, we can get rid of that token that we just accumulated, summon the Yubel onto our side of the field, get the counter straight back again. Then we set Eternal Favorite. So here we have exactly the same situation as last time. We will revive regenerating Lotus, and then Yubel's effect will activate, and we can choose to pop it to trigger Yama's effect to bring a Spirit of Yubel, or we can keep it by tributing our regenerating Lotus, keeping our Eternal Favorite live. The only difference here is that we have Soul of Rage, which is 1 disruption, into Little Knight, which is a banish, so that's a 2nd disruption. It can banish a 2nd time, which is a 3rd disruption. Then if your cards get destroyed, we have Unchained Soul for a 4th disruption. And then if you either kept Lotus, then that's a 5th sort of like mini disruption, or you can have Eternal Favorite as like a board wipe super poly. So you have 5 disruptions off of 2 or 3 cards effectively. So using the Gates package can make your like first turn setup ridiculously strong. The only issue is that Gates is the only good card in the package. Dark Beckoning Beast and even the other Beckoning Beasts are like really clunky to use. So for that reason, I tend not to use them. I just sub them out and I put Neo's Fusion in instead. But again, it's all kind of down to preference. If you like this kind of setup, then that's fine. And here's another fun package that you can use, also ridiculously expensive, and that is using the like Diabellestar, like Sinful Spoils type cards. And I'll show you why it's really quite synergistic with Yubel. So we're going to activate Seeker of Sinful Spoils to add Diabellestar the Black Witch into our hand. Diabellestar can activate by sending a card to the graveyard. We're going to summon herself, activate Diabellestar's effect. This will let you set something onto your side of the field. In my case, it's going to be the original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye. This will tribute Diabellestar to summon Decatron from our deck. This is a level 1 Fiend Tuner, but its effect will activate, letting us send Deviati into the graveyard. Now our Decatron is a level 10 tuner, giving us a couple of options. One being level 10, Yubel is level 10, so we can now overlay into like Gustav Max or similar, or we can summon Regenerating Lotus, and if they preempt it with an Imperm, we still have a setup into our Psychic End Punisher. So this can become like our secondary win condition if need be. And of course, Sinful Spoils has the benefit of shoving a card back into the deck in order to search something out. So we get to draw a card. We either have a negate with Decatron, because we don't have to do anything with it. We can just keep it there as a disruption. But if you end up being disrupted yourself, you can then at least get rid of it to turn your end board into something workable. Now, I've seen some people use the following spell card. It's a quick play. It's called Action Magic Full Turn. The effect is this turn you double any battle damage that a player takes from battles involving 2 monsters, and then during the main phase, if it's in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent, you can discard a spell to like set it again. So pretty much it means, you summon Yubel and then you double the damage. So all I'd say is use it if you like. It's a fun tech, but I think it's very win more. You don't need to double your damage in order to win. You just need 2 Yubel monsters and then you overlay and then you win. But if this fits your playstyle, then, I'm not gonna knock it. So that's Yubel in a nutshell. I've been having a lot of fun with this deck. So Phantom Nightmare is right around the corner. So it's not gonna be too long before you can have fun with this deck as well. Or at least if you play online, then you can have fun right now. So let me know what you think. If you enjoy deck profiles from me that are not Archfiend related, then please let me know. I don't mind doing more of this sort of stuff. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, my name's Adam, and if you didn't, it's Steve. And I'll see you around.